Good morning, everybody. Thursday morning. I wanted to cover something about transmissions. I've put up the videos about the shimming, the videos about total disassembly and assembly, and I covered a portion and did a little explanation, but I want to show what happens if you get something backwards. Now, what I got here is the main shaft out of, looks like 85, 86, 250R, and where fifth gear goes here on the end. And then I talked about having the two different size keepers there. Basically, this is a spacer washer and this is a retainer. So I explained the differences on that. And basically, the small one is basically a retainer or a spacer washer to go against the C-clip. And what we had was someone on this transmission previously had put the larger washer there. And yeah, it'll fit. It may not be the tightest fitting thing in the world, but it's not going to spin. It's not going to move around because it's still just small enough to fit that spline. So that's not a huge thing if you had another one of those large retainers to put on the outside edge before the keeper. But what happens is when you put, I'm going to leave fifth gear off so I can just put the spacer. Fifth gear would normally go on here like so, but I'm just going to leave that gear off for now. And if you put the small retainer there, you can still put it on and you can still get it to turn and lock in place. And you're thinking, okay, so what's the big deal about that? Well, the big deal is the keeper doesn't go all the way down and lock in because the washer's not big enough behind it. So what you end up with in a case like this transmission is you end up with, instead of having a lock washer that is perfectly flat, I'm trying to get it here where you can see it, you end up with one that is concave looking and basically bent. So don't make that mistake. I can probably use a hammer and a little bit of care on this and probably straighten this out enough to use it, but for now it's going over there, and everything is going to go back together correctly. So, yeah, hopefully that helps with a little explanation. So you can actually swap them. I didn't cover that earlier. You can actually swap those washers, but when it comes to these little retainers here, you got to make sure you get it right because those need to stay flat. And that would have created an issue with drag possibly on this bearing end. If it got too far out, it could cause that thing to push against that bearing and cause it to not really bind up to the point where you couldn't spin it. But, you know, when things aren't right, they're just not right. So you just got to be careful about that stuff. So hopefully that helps. And little tech tip for you today. And everybody have you a great afternoon and a great weekend this weekend.